Madam Web might just be one of the biggest comic book disasters of all time when it comes to transitions from comics to live action. So it's also not surprising that Sony has pulled the plug on the film in its theatrical run. So I just made a video about how big of a disaster Madam Web is. If you want that put into context, I'll make sure it's one of the videos that pops up that's recommended. Go check that out. But what you need to understand is that this film was nothing for Sony. It was nothing. They made nothing. They're going to make nothing. This film will not make anything. And Sony's realized this. So the film has officially been pulled from theaters. It is no longer going to be playing in theaters. If there are some that are going to show it, it's one of those leftover things where they're like, hey, we have it in the smallest screen, and it's going to be maybe a few hundred worldwide for maybe another week or two, but it's done. Sony has pulled the plug on it. And this is due to the fact that after its last weekend, it's only made a total of $43 million in the United States, which makes it about $30 million less than Morbius in the US, making this their biggest failure to date. Obviously, if the film is taking up screens, then Sony would need to argue why it needs to be there, how theaters are going to make a cut, and believe it or not, if Sony was to pull a Disney and be like, hey, you have to keep this film here for 8 weeks if you want our next big blockbuster, like they could be like, hey, Madam Web must stay on screens for 8 weeks if you want Venom The Last Dance or Venom 3, right? Well, the theaters would expect money to come in, and if it doesn't, then Sony's on the hook for, making promises. Oh no, crowds are going to show up, trust us, and you're going to have a great time with Venom as well. It's these deals that are struck behind closed doors and with distribution and things like that that impact a lot. Sony was looking at 6 weeks of a run regardless of what happens. But obviously they thought it was going to do better. It didn't, so they're calling it quits way before the 6 weeks. And it'll be interesting to see how the financials for this look, because make no mistake about it, they will not look good. I promise you that. And by the end of the year, when we look at this, I will not be surprised if this is up there with the biggest box office comic book bombs of all time. It's just going to be disastrous because, again, where's all the other merchandise for this film? It doesn't exist. So they couldn't even supplement the loss with other income.